Okay, so I did my project on open versus closed loop systems in Motivator. So as an open introduction, both open and closed loop systems are important to different mechanisms of the body and for different functions. An open loop is a continuous control system where the output has no influence or effect on the control action of the input signal, and a closed loop is a control system that depends on the feedback to carry on that. And this is a picture of a closed loop system. During the loop process, there is no reference mechanism or feedback loop, so it has no reference for correctness. An open loop system also cannot modify the output, unlike a closed loop. Sensory mechanisms are not as important in an open loop system because of the lack of a feedback loop. A closed loop system is a control system that depends on feedback to carry on action. Auditory information is processed faster than visual, and at the executive level, the error between the information that we have and the desired level is addressed, and feedback from touch receptors and the environment is given. I looked at an article from the Journal of Neuroscience, and they showed that closed loop control of a visual stimulus promotes temporal coordination across the fly brain compared with open loop replay of the same visual sequences. So they had a bunch of lights that the flies were looking at, and they found that the closed loop behavior, which was the vertical dark bar above them, and the open loop without the bar, they were pretty much exactly the same. The behavior was basically the same. Closed loop systems, and then I found a article on closed loop system and muscle contraction in from IEE transactions on biomedical engineering, where they used an electrical stimulation of the muscle from a controlled simulator and investigated systems employing closed loop force feedback to provide regulation of contractions. They found that closed loop systems were found to be linear and had a good compensations for variations in muscle properties. And they found that closed loop system was just as fast or faster than the open loop system. Coronary blood flow is an open loop system by getting messages from the brain to increase the pace and amount of blood flow to the muscles while exercising in order to keep up the pace and make sure enough blood is flowing to the heart and muscles so the person doesn't pass out and go into brady or tachycardia. From an article from physiology.org, a model is used to quantify the relative contributions of open loop and feedback pathways and to illustrate the degree of redundancy in the control of coronary flow. The results indicate that open loop control is responsible for most of the increase in coronary blood flow during high intensity exercise. And the rate of ATP release from red blood cells increases with decreasing oxygenated blood saturation on vascular receptors because of the feedback system. In a study that I found on closed loop systems, they looked at the feasibility of a bihormonal closed loop system with 2 meals and 30 minutes of exercise. They found that the open loop and closed loop glucose controls were both comparable to each other, but there was over-insulinization in those patients with glucose over 7 millimoles per liter. In the research, they gave different amounts of carbohydrates and followed them up with exercise to see how the body would respond. And they found that they were about the same. Overall, both open and closed loop systems are important with any physical activity, and they are both useful for different aspects of physical activity. They help different control systems of the body regulate which one is the most optimal to use to get the most out of the system and the activity you're trying to execute. From my findings, it seems that closed loop systems are more useful because of the feedback mechanism, but open loop systems can still be helpful and vital. These loop systems can play a role in rehab and diabetes during exercise and visual stimuli. They are both vital to our well-being and function of our muscles and general function of our many body systems. My question is just to go deeper into how these loop systems work with physical activity and muscle contraction. And these were my references. Thank you.